My next guest is coming off a huge win over Damon Jackson, UFC Fight Night back on August 10th. It's Chepe Mariscal back here on the program. Chepe, how's it going, man?
Doing good, man. How about you?
I'm doing great. I know you always look for the finish, but did the fight kind of play out how you thought it would sort of going in, or what were your overall thoughts on your performance?
Yeah, man. I felt like, after I wasn't eligible for, a fight night bonus or performance bonus. I was like, you know what? Let me show the world what I can do for 15 minutes,
Okay, interesting. So you purposely just wanted the fight to go on longer to maybe show off some more stuff then, just because you knew the bonus wasn't attainable after missing weight.
Yeah, and I felt like if I punched any harder or, because I threw a lot of strikes with my hands, so I felt like if I punched any more or any harder, I would have broken my hands for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting though. I mean, that totally makes sense. I get it. Like, why like potentially injure yourself or do more? I mean, the fight was still great compared to the rest of the card. I mean, that your fight was one of the highlights on the event too. Did that play into it as well? Like, I'm sure, I don't know if you watched any other fights, but like your fight was one that really, I think, captured people on that event. There was a lot of kind of not so good fights.
I didn't see nobody else's fight. I just heard about Chris Gutierrez's performance from like other like people that work there, and I was like, oh, that's good, but nothing really else of anybody else. It's just been me and what I did for that 15 minutes, and how I was able to just like breathe and talk and be aware of what was going on, and yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, completely agree. By the way, I got to point out to our audience, you're in your garage right now, in case people think you've been kidnapped, because it's kind of dark. You got the shades on, just making sure everything's good. You're in your Tesla, right? I was going to say, because don't you own a Tesla?
Yeah. Yeah, chilling.
I know we talked about this last interview. You own a Tesla, and I'm super jealous. I want to get one someday. They're pretty awesome. So you sort of talked about the fight and everything. Anything about Damon surprised you that maybe you weren't expecting? Kind of looking back on the matchup.
That he came out with some fire. He started right away with the body kick, and started. What was crazy is I thought they were going to be more patient. Playing the outside, try to drag me into me putting pressure, where Damon was saying in interviews he was going to use that and wrestle against me and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, this is pretty interesting that he's putting the fire, right away, because that goes right into my game. My clinch game, my boxing, my grappling. That's where I try to, keep everything kind of busy is in that, in that fire. So, that's what surprised me. And what surprised me is his grappling wasn't as good as I thought it would be. I
Mm-hmm.
thought he was gonna be more leechy, more glued. And I trained with some high level black belts, some high level blue belts. Um, for the fight, and man, I was just very surprised that I was well prepared.
And you sort of referenced it there, obviously the weight cut. And I do got to point out, I don't believe you've ever missed weight in your career, right? You've made the mark. I think I know in the UFC for sure you have, but I think even outside that, you've never missed weight before. So I guess for people who might not know what happened there.
So like, I changed a certain thing in the cut, and it was like doing something outside and kind of shot, like put my body into shock basically, where I couldn't even function or do anything, like where I couldn't even lose the weight. So that's why I went to the UFC PI, try to like see if they could give me something or tell me a different route to lose the weight. But they saw like I was kind of like sick and throwing up, and they were like, you know what, like we're gonna cut you at 150. And at that point, I was like, man, I don't even want to show up. Then I don't even want to fight, because that's how embarrassed I was. I was like, I don't want to miss weight in the UFC, like especially the UFC. So I was like, man, like this kind of sucks. Like I don't even like. Can we call and be like, nah, we don't want to fight? Yeah. And then my coach was brought me back in and was he was like, nah, we're gonna try, and see what's up. But like if they want to fight, cool. If they don't, we tried. So yeah, we tried. We went out. We went and then what's crazy is I was hanging out at the PI like 6 in the morning, because all night I was up. So then I didn't even know if I could even perform, the next day. I was so kind of like messed up, and I was like, I don't know how the intake's gonna be. So we got to the arena, and I obviously missed the weight. And then they were like, "Oh, but just give us a percentage." Like they didn't. I guess they didn't care about the weight cut, right? They were
Yeah.
more. It looked like they were more excited about the percentage. They're like, "Oh, well, give us this percentage, and then we'll fight." And then I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." Like that's obviously part of the job. You don't make the weight, you give up a percentage. So I did, and then they were still down to fight, and then that kind of what got me like a little more fire. I was like, all right, well, let's go, and we just took the fight, and then I was like, all right, well, I'm definitely gonna go out there just because the fight's on. I was like, I'm gonna go out there and give a great performance.
Well, it's pretty incredible that, yeah, everything you had to go through, you still went out there and performed quite well. Like you said, you weren't even sure if you were going to be able to, show up and do well. Do you know like how much you had to give up of your purse, like financially? Because like I think you like it's one thing if you miss a couple pounds, but I know you missed like a lot, right? So
Yeah, so like uh it was just like 25%,
oh,
like I know
25.
it's
Okay,
like
gotcha. Yeah.
yeah, so I was like, all right, it obviously, and that's why I didn't want to fight either. I was like, oh my god, like 25% of the purse, I mean, well, the weigh-in, and then I wouldn't be eligible for a bonus.
Yeah.
So then I was kind of bummed out on myself on that. And then my coaches were like, nah, forget that, let's get the win, let's forget about it. What happened, today's a new day. And yeah, man, they kept me. And sometimes you gotta, like, I had to shut myself up and just listen.
Mhm.
And that's what I did. It was like, forget all my thoughts, don't even think about how I feel, nothing like that, just numb out and just listen and do what they say. And I kind of told them that, like, lead me to it. And yeah, man, they led me to it. You can see, like, I even purposely made the fight come towards my side of the cage. I didn't want him by his cage, so, I was like, out there fighting my style, but using the IQ to put his pressure and make him try to take me down, do things around my corner. So, I'm more prepared, and I was more, on that listening game and going. And yeah, and it gave us a beautiful win.
Did you hear his corner talking smack, like throughout the fight? Because I could hear them on the broadcast.
Yeah, no, they were definitely talking smack, man. So it was fine, Obviously, I know Safe. I've heard about him for many years about like how much he talks smack and other stuff. And honestly, I talked back, but I was like he was like, oh, one guy made weight coming in, one guy made weight, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. And I gave up some of my percentage.
Mhm.
Like I just told him straight up, and then he started getting crazy, and he even went like on the side of the cage talking smack, and he was like, you're a disgrace, blah blah. I'm like, I'm a disgrace. I'm like, hey, you're the guys who took the fight, like
Mhm.
I'm just doing my job, and even when I got my hand raised, I even turned around and was like, did you hear those scorecards? Because even if the scorecards, that's a 30-25, like the judges are not giving that anymore.
Mhm.
So it's like how to get that, like, and I had a tough weight cut. Like if he did his performance, you know, I don't know, it would have showed different, but I showed up, did what I had to do, and I obviously, manhandled him the whole 3 rounds, and just getting ready for the next one.
And speaking of the next one, when do you want to get back in there? Any cards you're looking at? I imagine as a Colorado guy, do you want to fight on that Utah card because it's so close?
Not really. Like I like fighting anywhere,
Oh, okay.
like it depends, like it's overseas, that's cool, like I like fighting anywhere. Um, but it would be cool to fight in like November, December. I don't know what they really have. I obviously need to do some things for this cuts and get a nutrition team and a whole kind of like a program going, and it'll be fun. It'll be something new, um, and what champions are doing right now. So it'll be a new lifestyle for my career and for my living as well. But yeah, and if I get that everything settled for sure, November, December, I'll be bothering my manager to give me a fight for sure.
And I don't know if you heard, it looks like the Apex is going to be shutting down for construction. Are you talking to your manager, see if they can come back to Chicago? Because they haven't been back in a couple of years. That seems like a good destination. Obviously, you're an Illinois guy. What would you like to see, like to fight there, I'm sure?
Yeah, it'd be cool, man. Obviously, like, man, there's a lot of Chicago guys coming up.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, you got Muhammad making noise at welterweight. You got Curtis Blades, who's obviously still making noise at the heavyweight division. We got Carlos Hernandez, who's making noise at flyweight. You got me at featherweight. Yeah, you got Neil Magny at welterweight. You got a bunch of there's a bunch of like dudes from the area too that are in the UFC that could blow up the card, but yeah, man. If not, I'd try to get on a Denver card if I ever came here, but it's whatever card it has to be on November, December, and I don't know if they're gonna do any Chicago cards then, but yeah, it'd be cool, man. It'd be cool to be on a card like that and on a main card, or even be the main event for a card like that.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, I think their schedule's set for this year. I think November's New York is the big pay-per-view, and then I'm not sure actually they're going to Edmonton. I think at the beginning of the year. You ever been up to Canada? Maybe that would be fun.
I've been to I think Detroit, Canada, right?
Well, no, Detroit's right beside Toronto. So if you would have crossed the border, you would have been in Ontario, which is Toronto.
Ontario. There you go.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
I know. I cornered over there. It was pretty cool, nice. But like I said, I'd fight. Yeah, I'd fight over there. Just the fight, man. I like, it's more of the fights. I don't care where, how high, how low, in the jungle, out of the jungle, Saudi Arabia. It'd be fun, obviously to test me out in all these different areas. I look at it as like kind of a street fighter, I'm fighting a guy from, in America, and then fly out to, I don't know, let's say Japan and fight somebody there. But, it'd be fun, something like that, something different.
By the way, Street Fighter references are very much welcome in these interviews. By the way, one of my favorite game of all time, Street Fighter 2. So,
sure. And you seeing I'm like that, man. I look at it as a video game fighting these guys. I keep gotta.
Going up the ladder, like in Mortal Kombat, where you keep moving up and it shows you the boss at the end, right? The big-headed monster, which I guess in this case is Ilia Topuria, right? So.
Yeah, man. So that's what I'm looking at it. Like, just keep fighting these guys, even if I fall off. Okay, there's still those ladders, But yeah, man, my plan is to keep getting all these wins and see a nice title shot or a title win. That'd be cool, man. Within the, in a year, that'd be dope,
Absolutely. So technically, if we're talking video game style here, you'd be on level 5. This will be your 5th fight in the UFC is the next one. What does level 5 look like? Who do you want to fight next?
Man, well, if we're going to jump the gun, like they were telling me just to play around, like somebody in the top 10, and I was like, oh, Josh Emmett would be a fun fight, and I haven't seen him lined up or fighting anybody. So it'd be cool to, get him back, on track. Or if it was top 15, it would be cool to fight Edson Barbosa.
Yeah.
And if it was like top 5, I was like, man, Max Holloway or Ilia Topuria would be fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know I mentioned this, I think, last interview, but you have a lot of fighters you've already fought that are in your division. Anderson Brito, Bryce Mitchell. I know you beat Yusuf Zalal. He's obviously one on your card as well. Steve Garcia, but Steve Garcia we know now is fighting Kyle Nelson, so maybe the winner of that. But any of those rematches interest you at any point either?
Yeah, man. If those guys are winning and doing their part, obviously if I have to run into them, yeah, but, they chose their own routes. Like, if you look at all those guys that I fought, they haven't even fought each other because they're not that they're thinking smart. They're thinking, fight somebody else in the division like Kyle Nelson. That's a good fight. I think I for sure Steve Garcia is gonna, like, I have a good feeling he's gonna finish him in the first or second. And not talking down on Kyle Nelson, but I just know that Steve Garcia is a good striker. I could see he's putting in the work now too. But if those guys, like, if the UFC offer me them, obviously it's a yes, especially if they're in my way to the title, whoever got to chop out, and I've asked for those guys before, but they all avoided each other and they're all in their own routes. And that's why I tell people, I'm like, you see, I take all these fights, but I got to rematch these guys. Like, they don't even want to rematch those other guys. You know,
Yeah.
they just want to keep pushing on the, the tracks. Like Berto had that shin split thing with that guy. They asked to fight again, and they're like, nah. They want to fight somebody higher, and that's cool. It is what it is, but that's how I look at it too. Like I can't be stuck on this revenge mode when they're not in any revenge mode of their own.
Absolutely. You referenced Topuria and Holloway. They're obviously fighting each other in UFC 308. Now that it's official, who do you see winning the featherweight title in that fight?
I got Max Holloway in that fight, man, for sure. Like I feel like his volume and his nonstop, like motion and everything is gonna probably drag Tempora into some deep waters and get him tired. Not throw some power punches. I know they're gonna, for the first round for sure, because it's a 5-round fight.
Hmm.
They're gonna try to like keep it leveled and test out Max Holloway. Eat his angles, eat his shots, just like they did with Volkanovski, and then like the second round pull the trigger. But I feel like if Max Holloway keeps the volume up, man, he's gonna be unstoppable like he did against Gaethje.
Did you watch any of the Olympics? Obviously, they just wrapped up. I don't know if you caught any of the highlights or saw anything. I know you were in fight camp, but maybe caught some highlights.
Yeah, only the basketball Olympics. Like
Yeah.
I saw LeBron James, Steph Curry. Literally, I was watching them play before I left to the arena, so it was
Oh,
cool to
cool.
watch them kind of be light on their feet, some movement, angles. I saw Steph Curry from going side from one end to the other. Just to get his good angles on his shots. I was like, man, that's what I'm gonna do in my fight. I'm gonna pull this dude, into like this kind of like rocking motion where I was putting him more towards my corner and him to his. You know what I mean?
Yeah, love it. That's great. And last question: what do you got planned the rest of the week other than talking to guys like me? You got anything planned with the girlfriend? Are you doing anything cool?
Oh, what's crazy is came back to work. I was doing recovery stuff this morning. I already had metabolic training, so I'm doing some training where I could do it, but not like too intense. So
Okay.
to break up the swelling and keep things functional, and then been hitting chirotherapy, um, freezing my butt off. But yeah, just back to work, and then we'll probably head out to the Midwest, back to like our area, Chicago Midwest, see some family, and then just back to work.
There
And
we go.
hopefully get back on a card in November or December.
Love it. Chepe, thanks for doing this, man. All the best. If there's anyone you want to thank before we get out of here, any sponsors, any social media, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, man. Thanks to my team Iridium for all the the help matching me up with these cool fighters, and then yeah, thanks to my fight team, my corner, my wife, and then yeah, thanks to guys like you for giving us a voice.